It's been ages and ages and ages since I last reviewed a Polk speaker. So I reached out a few months ago and said, hey, I think it's about time. And they said, can you wait a little bit? I said, I waited this long? Sure, why not? It's because we have something really special coming. And what I was waiting for was this. This is the Legend L200 speaker from Polk. And there's a bunch of speakers in the Legend lineup. There's also a smaller bookshelf. But right now I'm just going to talk about the L200. First of all, it's one of those speakers that as soon as I unboxed it and set it up, it sounded wonderful. I mean, like, yes, oh, I understand why they want to be awake. This is really, really good. This is a very special sounding speaker. It has, well, I'm going to list all the specs and numbers directly below in the description box, but the ones off the top of my head, it has a 1-inch Pinnacle ring radiator tweeter with that sharp pointy thing sticking out of the center, and believe me, it's sharp. I poked my finger on it and I almost had a scar. No, but anyway, so there's that tweeter. Then there's a new version of their ribbed woofers, which are well, actually it's aerated foam, which has a skin on the outside and it has the ribs. All of that makes for a very light cone and yet high in stiffness, and we all want extra stiffness in our cones. So that's off to a good start. The cabinet is solid, really, really solid. It weighs a hefty 22 pounds. Comes with your choice of one of two veneers, black ash or walnut. Both are real wood, not vinyl. Like I said, it feels very, very well put together. Round back, there is the famous Polk power port, which is a port that has sort of a pointy thing. Speaking of pointy things, it looks like a Hershey Kiss. It's sticking into the port. And below that are bi-wire posts with, instead of the usual cheesy metal strips that connect the bass input to the treble input, there's cables. There are speaker wires that connect the top to the bottom. Nicely done. Very classy. You don't usually see that in speakers in this price range. Oh yeah, the price. The price is $17.99 a pair. There's also a smaller bookshelf speaker, the L100. That one is $1,200 a pair. Now, at this point, I do feel compelled to tell you that the speakers are made in China. And I know that kind of bugs people, but that's kind of the reality. Your phone is probably made in China. Your camera's made in China. Everything's made in China. So don't get all weird that it's made in China. It's beautifully made. And what else can you ask for? As for more numbers, because you know I'm a spec guy, right? The impedance is on the low side. It's 4 ohms. And in the spec, it actually says that with a minimum of 3.6 ohms. So that's definitely on the low side. And the other number that jumped out at me was sensitivity, which is low. It's 85.5 dB for 1 watt. So what can I tell you? Now, as for electronics that I used with this speaker, I used a bunch of amps. I used the first watt F7, which is a low power amp actually. I also used a Schiit Agir, another low power Class A amplifier. And also, to complete, I played the new Denon PMA, I think it's PMA 100 NE stereo integrated amp. That actually is rated to handle 4 ohms. Now, a lot of receivers and integrated amps in this price range aren't 4 ohm rated, at least. That's not to say they're not safe to use with 4 ohm rated speakers. They just don't include they just don't include that information in their spec listings. So have we gotten everything? I'm pretty sure we have. So let's get to it. Let's talk about what this puppy sounds like. Oh, I forgot to mention that the Legend line replaces the LSIM line, the former flagship line from Polk. So those are all going away. Legend is where it's at, and Legend is where I'm at. So as I said, the impressions of the speaker from the get-go were really, really positive. It's a full sounding speaker. Okay, I'm going to go beyond that. This speaker makes bass, solid bass for a relatively small bookshelf speaker. This guy's got real power down there, and it's also extremely well defined power. So it's not just, they tuned it to have like, you know, thick, bloaty, muddy bass to give the impression of bass. No, the bass is pretty damn secure. It's very well sorted out down there. It's not just a thick blob of bass. This is what I started with. I will link to it below. I can't say the name of this band. Believe me, I've tried. It's not even close. But anyway, so it's a funk group, and they're bass, guitar, drums, cool sounds, and the L200 totally nailed it. Also, I noticed how big the stage was. It's a very open sounding speaker, very relaxed sounding speaker in the sense of being low distortion, really smooth, bass, mid, treble, nicely done. Well, I could say with vocals, I started to feel sometimes that the vocals were a tad recessed, you know, sounding like further back in the soundstage. But overall, yeah, I would say the balance is on the rich side of neutral, but pleasantly so. You really, you're at ease when you listen to this speaker. It's not like a Klipsch. It's not about here's this energy and stuff. It's not that kind of speaker, not at all. Oh, and by the way, a little later in this review, I will compare it directly to the KEF LS50 as some kind of reference that people really know. But I also played this audiophile recording that was done for Chesky Records with Casey Abrams. And it's called Jazz. It's a jazz vocal record. I was there at the session. And I would say in terms of what Casey was singing and how he was putting his energy into the music, the L200 was there. It sounded very right. This recording was done fairly recently. Was it in this year? Probably this year, 2019. So I have a really good memory of that session. He also plays bass, usually as he's singing, stand-up acoustic bass. Bass was va-va-voom, big, which was also really nice. So I kept feeling that this is a very easy speaker to live with. It's not doing anything wrong, and its errors on the side of warmth and fullness are very agreeable. Now, of course, if you want straight down the middle neutral, I don't think this is going to win you over. But if you want to listen for pleasure, I think the L200 will be definitely worth considering and definitely worth an audition. So I'm going to cut now to my impressions of comparing the L200 against the LS50. They're both low sensitivity speakers, meaning it takes some oomph to drive them. I wouldn't be pairing either of them with an average, $500 or $600 AV receiver. I don't think that would work out too well. Neither of them are bright. They're on the relaxed side of neutral, I would say. But the L200 sounds like a bigger speaker. It is a bigger speaker. It sounds like a bigger speaker. No getting around that. It has a 6.5-inch woofer. The LS50 has a 5 1/4, and the box, it's a considerably larger box for the L200. Those differences are audible, to say the least. So I used two recordings for this round. This MA recording, El Segundo, awesome audiophile recording, and Eric Clapton, Wynton Marsalis's combo record here. I'm not a fan actually of either of these artists, but this is a really good recording. It's a bluesy kind of thing, and also sounds pretty good. The LS50 is smaller but more clearly focused. They both do depth very well, but I would say the L200 wins. It's more 3D, more expansive. It's like the LS50 can sound kind of uptight, and by contrast, the L200 sounds kind of voluptuous, luscious. It's got some solidity to the sound that the LS50 doesn't. Now I'm listening in a pretty big room. If you're in a small room and you have to have the speakers near a wall, I think that might actually tilt the balance to the LS50 side of things. The L200 wins in terms of va-va-voom. Let's put it that way. L200 has a lot of percussion, big drums, hand percussion. The big drums, the thwack of the drum really shakes the room. I was really impressed, again, with the L200's low-end capabilities for relatively, well, let's say a mid-sized bookshelf speaker. The LS50 can't compete. If you like deep bass, you definitely need a subwoofer. With the L200, no, unless you really, really crave room-shaking bass. The L200 makes plenty of low end on its own. The hand percussion, though, on the LS50 had a tactile, that palpability of fingers on skin kind of thing. Did that really well, and I would say the L200 was less of that tactile quality. But in both cases, I enjoy both speakers very much. I would say I would lean toward the L200. Now the thing is, as I said up front here, the L200 is a substantially bigger speaker than the LS50, and it might have been a fairer comparison to use the KEF R3, which is about $2,000, but it's a bigger speaker, has also a 6-inch driver, so it's a fair comparison. Catch is, I didn't have it here. Okay, so now we're back, and I also spent some time listening to the L200 with some harder stuff like Yola Tango, and they have this ability to sound electric and use like kinetic energy and kind of gritty edged guitars and still be so melodically wonderful. It's just kind of easy and biting all at the same time, and that's what I love about that band. They've gone through many changes in all their albums. I just kind of play with all of them. I love that band. They've been around a long time. I saw them once in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and they were just like their record. These speakers, the L200, were not wanting. And when I played Yola Tango pumped up really loud, no strain, they just went with the flow. I also spent some time just listening in, let's say, 2-channel theater mode. And as I watched the Rolling Thunder Review documentary that Martin Scorsese put together, I gotta say, I'm a big Dylan fan. I've never seen Dylan more human and real and showing emotions and having fun on this 1975 tour. He's usually kind of guarded. He's usually choosing his words wisely. Here he's just having fun, talking to different musicians. There's interviews with him then in 1975 and also when the year the documentary was made, which I think was last year. But it's a great documentary. Sounds pretty good. I wouldn't say great, but the what was going on emotionally and musically in this documentary was well played by the L200s. So I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but there's also this smaller one. I did mention that, the L100, but also some larger tower speakers, the L600, which is $4,000 a pair, and also the L800, which is $6,000 a pair. And those two, the L800 has something special. It has what Polk calls the SDA technology, which is a way with using 2 sets of tweeters and mid-ranges to spread the sound and create a bigger, more open soundstage. I haven't heard them. I can't say what they sound like, but I will definitely make an effort to hear them soon and maybe even get them in for review. So here's where we're at. Where do I stand on this speaker? The L200. I like it, and I like it a lot. So, but to be more critical about it, I wish it was a little more affordable. I think $1,800, maybe people will feel like, I don't feel or see it as an $1,800 pair of speakers. I think if it was $1,500 or even $1,200, it would be better. But then again, if that's what you got in terms of your budget, check out the L100. The fact that it's made in China rubs some people the wrong way. That's just the reality of speaker business in 2019 and certainly going forward. But all in all, I think this is a really great speaker. and deserves to be their new flagship, no doubt about that. So I think my work here is finally complete. My name is Steve Guttenberg. This is still the Audiophiliac Daily Show with sirens, special effects. I mix those in. It's so cool, right? And what else can I tell you? If you dig it, please check out my Patreon. If I was going to do this, I was going to say, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then check out the Patreon at patreon.com/audiophiliac. Oh, and you can follow me on Twitter at audiophiliacman. Anyway, thank you as always for watching. Hope to see you back here again very, very soon, like tomorrow. That'll be good. Anyway, bye-bye.